All right, final lesson. This is where we're gonna end it. So we're gonna go lesson on W19, 20, and 21. You're gonna do W23 and 24, and then you'll be ready for the quiz. Basically, the log stuff that you did in the last section was just a little tiny introduction, and then we're gonna go straight to the graphing of logs. So basically, the quiz is on graphing of exponentials and graphing of logs. So I gotta teach you how to graph the logs. So we start off with remembering how we graphed exponential functions, y equals 2 to the x. So he has you remembering, going through the table, and how do we do this? So when x is -2, we get 1/4. -1, we get a half. 0, we get 1. When x is 1, we get 2. When x is 2, we get 4. 3, we get 8. 4, we get 16. So just remembering how we graph these things, and that, hold on, whatever, our graph gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, it's to remind us that our key point was 0, 1, that our asymptote happens, at y equals 0. We have a horizontal asymptote here. Our domain is -infinity to infinity, and our range is the lowest y to the biggest y, so 0 to infinity. Now, how do we graph logs? Well, here's the thing. Exponential functions and logs are opposites of each other. Opposites meaning okay, let me say it this way. The key point so I'm gonna graph y equals log of x. Okay, I'm not gonna graph this. I'm gonna graph y equals log of x. I'll say log base 2. So I'm graphing the exact inverse of this. What happens is the key point instead becomes 1, 0. The asymptote, instead of being horizontal, the asymptote is going to be vertical. It's going to be a vertical line of x equals 0. So I'm going to have a vertical asymptote. I'm going to have a key point right here. Now, instead of my domain here was -infinity to infinity, that's going to be my range here, meaning all the y's are going to get hit all the time, but not all the x's. Let me show you what it looks like. It goes down like this, and then it slowly comes like that. That is what a log graph looks like. The domain is going to be from everything from the asymptote on, so from 0 to infinity. So now we're going to start graphing these. So you kind of have to think about, what are you graphing, exponentials or logs? If it's exponentials, you're going to have a horizontal asymptote and go from there. If it's a logarithm, you're going to have a vertical asymptote and graph it from there. Now we have Desmos still, so I'm going to open up that graphing calculator, and I'm going to put in y equals log of x. Now guess what? It doesn't matter what the base of it is. So no matter what the base is, you don't actually even have to put a base in. They're all going to basically look the same. So here's the picture of that. Here's my key point at 1, 0. I've got that vertical asymptote. If I want to see that vertical asymptote, I can put in x equals 0. That shows me the vertical asymptote instead of the horizontal one. And I'm set. Okay, so we're going to use Desmos as our guide. You can use it while you're doing your work. And just like everything else, these shifts happen the same way. So here's my first problem. I have x minus 2. Well, guess what? That means I am shifted to the right 2. So my asymptote is going to come over here. My vertical asymptote is going to be at x equals 2. My key point is still 1 away from the asymptote. And I'm going to look like this. My domain is everything from 2 and over, so open parentheses 2, infinity. When we do the homework, he asks for a lot more points. He's going to ask for the base, which was kind of dumb. That's just the base of the log. And then what the key point is. So the key point here is right here, 1 over from the asymptote. We can also graph this. Okay, so what was the difference here? This had in parentheses x minus 2. Okay, oops. Okay, so here's my graph. Notice my asymptote is going to move as well, so I'd have to go change that if I want to really make sure that that is right. I'm going to change it to 2 just so I can see. Yep, there it is. Okay, my key point is right here. Just like before, if you wanted to see points, you can click on the settings and go check out your table. Look, I have a lot of undefined stuff. It's because I don't have a graph for those points. So I'd have to go put in like an x value that makes sense. So let's go put an x value of 3. There you go. 3, 0, that's a point to start at. All right, number 2 is a logarithm. It is only shifted up 1. That's what that 1 is. So that means my vertical asymptote is in the same spot, x equals 0. And my key point, instead of being right here at 1, 0 like normal, it's moved up 1. Gonna look like this. My domain's gonna be 0 to infinity. All right, go check that on Desmos so you can check out how that matches. Number 3, I have 2 moves happening, a -1 and a +3. Okay, so that means I'm gonna move left 1, right 1, because the opposite way, and up 3. So that means my vertical asymptote is moved, keep moving the wrong way, to the right 1. Okay, here's my vertical asymptote at x equals 1. And my starting point is usually 1 over from that, but now it's up 3. So my starting point is going to be at 2, 3. And I still have that same shape, going like this. And the domain is 1 to infinity. All right, for this one, now they've made my x negative. Well, what happens? I don't know, let's go up and see. So let's start over here. Let's put in y equals log parentheses negative x. Okay, look what it did. It like took my log and flipped it over that vertical asymptote. So now my graph, instead of being over here, is on the left. So, oops, and then I have a +3. +3. Okay, that just took me and moved me up 3. So that means I've got my vertical asymptote still here at x equals 0. But now my graph's on the other side and it's moved up 3. So I've got that kind of graph going on, and my domain is -infinity to 0. All my x's are from -infinity all the way up to ending at 0. So this is it. We're going to repeat this over and over again. I'm going to have you skip the 2 natural log problems that are down here. But you're going to go ahead and put these into Desmos and see what they look like. And then I've done the work for your homework. So again, if you want to go through any of this together, let me know. I'm happy to. But here's your homework, and then you're going to be ready for the next quiz.